was lovely. He weighed £7.10. He was born about 6:10 in the evening. But I had no one to ring up, you know. I never got any cards, never got any flowers.
They came in and said, have you said your goodbyes? And I just completely fell apart. I just cried all over him. My mother cried a little bit, and she just took him from me.
Not a day gone by I haven't thought about him, wondered what he's doing. At certain times thinking, well, he's a year old now, or he's 2 years old, or he's 5 years old, starting school. How's he got on at school?
I found my daughter the week before her 17th birthday. When the certificate came through the door with her name on it, I thought I'd won the pools.
Today is going to be the most wonderful day of my life. I'm going to meet my baby again, for the first time, after 23 years and 3 months.
Since 1926, when legal adoption was introduced in the United Kingdom, more than 500,000 women have given up their babies. In adoption, the focus has always been on the child. The mothers who brought them into the world have been forgotten. But these women have borne the twin burdens of public secrecy and private loss for decades.
Well, I've been trying to find him really since about 1980. I've made several attempts. About a year ago, I wrote to Westminster Social Services because they hold Ivan's files. They said they couldn't give me any information whatsoever. I phoned up Clerkenwell Court where the adoption order took place. They said they didn't keep records. I put an advert in the Islington Gazette. I didn't get any joy on that either. But I was told about a lady called Ariel Bruce, and that she was very good. I seem to be coming to a dead end. No matter what turning I take, it always ends up in great disappointment. I've had absolutely no joy at all from the City of Westminster. I've written to them on many occasions and was more or less told no news is good news, and their policy was that they would not give out any identifying information at all.
Yes. What does that say on the back?
Oh, I put, if lost, please return to, and that's where I was living. But
is there something there that's been
I think there's there underneath. There's a date there, the 11th of April, 60. But whether that was taken on, that's the date of when the photograph was taken, or whether I did wonder whether it would be the date that he actually became legally theirs, the adopted parents.
Yeah. Something's been rubbed out with a pencil. You were given this in 1960?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think it would be worth trying to get a forensic on this.
Really?
Yeah.
Sometimes, even now, I wake up of a night time and think of him, and I get this awful sinking feeling in my stomach.
Does that help? Well, I think the things that you've got which help are the photographs.
I just can't believe it. Somewhere in this world there's my flesh and blood, and I just don't know how he is, where he is.
I would approach this search. You know, I do have to say again to you that whereas if I'm searching on behalf of an adopted person, I can expect to be perhaps over 90% successful. With these searches, the probability of success is much lower. I think if it's 40 or 50... It's really hard for birth mothers to trace children that have been placed for adoption. The odds are stacked against them, and there's no legislation which gives them any right to information. No. Okay, no. I'm not magic. There is no way in which it's possible for women to just forget children that were placed for adoption. And I think that really what you're talking about is women who still have the feelings of loss from all those years ago.
I'm getting older. I have a health problem, I have a heart problem, kidney problem. I might look healthy, but they're quite serious problems. I'm having medication for them. And I'd hate to go to my grave not knowing how he is, where he is, whether he's alive or dead. I want to know, no matter what the news is, I want to know, just to put my mind at rest. And one thing worries me is if the adoption wasn't successful, for example, he could be down and out, I've got a home here to offer him. And I don't care what he's like, if he's dirty, filthy dirty, I don't care what he is, I would care for him, you see. Even if he's a drug addict and on his last legs, I would still care for him.
I met John in March 1967. We knew we'd stayed together. We'd been going out with each other for over a year, so it wasn't just a 5-minute romance. It wasn't a one-night stand. We thought a hell of a lot of each other. I know that. We really thought a lot. I know that I'd missed a period. I didn't think anything of it. I just never thought I'd be pregnant. I was sent away to an unmarried mother's home a few months later. I was sent away before I showed. Had to be out of the house before I showed, so that none of the neighbours knew.
I was 14 at the time. It was, I suppose you could say, a one-night stand. I never saw him again. And then I realised 7 months later that I was pregnant. And I just didn't know what to do. It was awful. There was at least 3 I know of in my class that had illegitimate babies, but it was all hidden. I mean, it was very much hidden. You were sent away. You were going on a typing course, or you were doing something special. Or you were going away to an aunt who was poorly. It wasn't talked about. You weren't supposed to. And then you came back and you were all bright and breezy again. That was supposed to be the scenario of being an unmarried mother in 1969.
I must have been 14 when I first met him, and he was a lot older. He was 20, 21. I think at his 21st birthday, shortly after we met. It must have been in June of 1972 that I became pregnant. I think we could only have actually had sex 2 or 3 times, but I didn't even know I'd had sex at the time, which is, I didn't know exactly what it was, and I just knew I didn't want to do it, and he would prey on my naivety and say, oh, we're not really doing it, this isn't doing it, and this is okay.
He used to come in the office and be very kind, and used to make nice remarks about the way I dressed and how I looked. And I just fell for him lock, stock and barrel, as they say. He was a very gentle sort of person. He was very kind, considerate, everything you'd want, really. The only trouble was he was married to someone else.
I didn't know who to go to, who to tell about it, what happened, what the outcome was going to be. I wasn't even sure where a baby came from. I knew I couldn't go to my mother, because my mother would probably kill me. I just didn't know what to do at all, and I thought, well, if I took my own life, then it wouldn't affect anybody else. It wouldn't affect anybody else at all, because the problem would be gone and done with.
I felt terribly guilty and terribly ashamed. I wasn't a virgin, I was pregnant, and I felt overwhelming shame for all of that. But out of all this mess, there'd been a life created, and I felt responsible for that life. And no matter what, I just wanted to do the best I could for everyone at the time, and adoption seemed to be the best thing for the baby. I can remember the moment she was born, I didn't want her to be born because I knew this was goodbye. And even though I've been trying to deny the pregnancy in my own mind, I did treasure that closeness with my child, and that was the end. So I just felt terribly, terribly sad and empty and lonely at the birth.
The pains actually started of the labour about 8 o'clock in the morning, and my mother called an ambulance and put me in it and sent me to hospital with no one with me, sent on my own. And the pain was just so intense that I truly thought I was dying. I didn't know what was going to happen. No one had sat down and explained it to me what was going to happen, so I just didn't know. They gave me an injection, and when I woke up I was actually pushing, and I actually gave birth with really no one there. They just came in as the head had been born, and I tore terribly.
I remember I must have fallen asleep and then waking up and hearing the record Stanley Holloway, "I'm Getting Married in the Morning," blaring on someone's radio. Then, of course, they brought the baby to me and was washed, and although I'd previously seen him, there he was, this lovely little pink bundle, and I just cried. I really did. With joy, I think it was. But there was this absolute love for him.
I remember ringing my mum and dad up, and they came on to see me in the hospital. I'm trying not to show that I'm in pain. I feel embarrassed really because my dad was there. And he turned around and he said to me, "What do you think of your little bit of fun now, my girl?" And then they went off home, Mum and Dad. They went off home and they left me there, alone again. I had Dominic on my own. I had no one there. I thought my mum would have stayed, but no. She had to go back and go to work, I think, I can remember.
Well, the next morning after her birth, all the other babies were being brought round to the mothers, and mine wasn't there, so I pulled out my drip and went looking for her because they just kept ignoring my question, and looked. She wasn't in the nursery, and I opened all the doors and cupboards and eventually found her in a linen cupboard, and there was a sign above her cot which said, "For adoption, not to be given to mother." And I just snatched her and took her back to my bed, and I wouldn't let anybody else touch her from then on. It was as if they were trying to kidnap her. I hadn't given any permission to anybody for anything. And I now realise it was the beginning of the pressure that they were going to put on me in future to relinquish my child.
He was such a placid baby. He just slept and smiled. Whether it's because I gave so much time to him, I don't know. I remember this sister, the church army sister, saying to me, "Out of all the mothers here, you should keep your baby." She said, I know your parents are pressuring you into having him adopted, but she said, "You're going to be such a good mother." She said, "I can see the way you're behaving with him."
My mother gave me the ultimatum that she either bring the baby up as her own, or else she would arrange for Graham to be adopted. Because I'd had such a horrendous childhood myself, I couldn't put Graham at risk of experiencing the same as what myself and my brothers had experienced in our childhood years. And I couldn't have seen him grow up as my brother, knowing he was my child. Even though I would have still been near him, I couldn't have had that.
There were no ways we would have been able to keep it. I was in there for a specific reason, and that was to, when I came out, I'd come out without that baby. I know that. We couldn't get married. We couldn't be together. We used to talk about the baby. We chose names for him or her. John chose the name Dominic. We used to buy clothes for him. for it. We used to just, when he used to come and see me, we used to go uptown and just walk around the shops. Couldn't make plans because we weren't allowed to, not to be together.
The parting with him was absolutely, it was horrendous. I thought, no, I can't carry on with life now. I thought of throwing myself in front of a double-decker bus, and I thought, my mother's with me, I can't do this to her. And we eventually got to Victoria Station. The train came in, and I thought, now, shall I? And that's when I thought, it's either now or never. And I thought, no, I can't.
I didn't really know anything at the time about how the adoption was arranged. All I knew was I was given a date or a day that this lady would be coming to pick my baby up. And this lady was going to be his new mother. So on this particular day, she arrived, and I literally had to hand my son over to somebody else. I spent the whole day crying, and not that that achieved anything. It was just absolutely terrible to see somebody else walking away with my baby. And my mother just stood there as if she'd paid the baker or the milkman. It was just no emotion at all. It was just awful, absolutely awful. I did ask that lady if she would tell him when he was old enough that it wasn't really my choice and that I did love him. And could she please keep his name?
You don't know anything's happening, but the process is going ahead. Wheels are being put in motion. I can remember my 80th birthday, and I was allowed to go home for the day. I remember Miss Mansell said, if you can find someone to take care of Dominic, you can go, your dad can take you home for the day. You can have a day out. Oh, and I loved that, and it was great. And I went home. Someone, let's say, there's always quite a few expectant mothers willing to take care of a baby, to get, used to what it's like. And I remember I went home, and it was great being home. And it wasn't until I got back in the evening that Miss Mansell told me that that was the day the prospective parents came and saw Dominic. So it must have all been pre-planned. Whether that was why I was sent home, I don't know. But then she said he was going on the 28th, which was 4 days later. I remember packing up all his clothes in a carrier bag. Mum and Dad made arrangements to come and pick me up about an hour after he was going. I remember that day clearly. I can remember sitting on a chair in the hall on a big sofa, watching him go out the door in a carry cot. And my mum and Dad came and picked me up and took me home, as if nothing had ever happened. I'll never forget that. You see me going out the door now. And he went off to his parents then, on that day. He's 5 weeks old.
Since the early days of adoption, secrecy was thought to be in everyone's best interest. Birth mothers were told little about the adoptive family, and the baby was given a brand new name, birth certificate, and identity. The mother was never allowed to see her child again.
You never see them, you never hear anything from them. You don't know whether they're dead or alive. It's as if they've never ever existed. They've never belonged to you and they're nothing to do with you. The judge's very words was to go away, forget it ever happened and leave it. We won't tell anybody, you don't tell anybody. And this is his actual words. Go and live your life as if this has never ever happened.
I had a letter to say that I had to go up and sign the adoption papers. I phoned them up and said I wouldn't be filling them in because I was going to ask for Ivan back. Well, then I got a telegram. A telegram was waiting for me when I got home from work to make a phone call to the adoption agency in Knightsbridge to go and see them. So I went up to see them and they handed a letter to me which was from Ivan's adoptive mother. She was pleading with me. In fact, I more or less know the letter off by heart. It had, please, 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 don't take our baby away from us. He is wanted so much. We love and cherish him. He has a new name, which he understands, and already he has learned to do clap hands for Daddy. We are praying to God that he will help you make the right decision. I can't remember the rest of it. And it was quite heartbreaking, actually, when I read it. I thought, how can I do it to these people? About 3 months after Ivan was adopted, I kept passing out and losing a lot of hair. If I used to wash my hair, the water would be absolutely covered with hair. That went on for about 3 weeks, and I went to the doctor, and he asked if I'd had any emotional shocks. So I said, well, I parted with a baby a few months ago. He said, oh, you should have got over that by now.
I was told that you are given the choice to have some photos sent to you before it goes into court. And you're advised to say yes, never say no, because after you've signed, you don't get another chance. So the photos, I said yes, I'd have the photos. And that's it. You sign those papers and it's all over. The baby's never been yours. It's never yours again. All you've got are a few items of clothing and some photos.
The pain came within a few weeks. The house was so quiet. There was no crying anymore. I couldn't hear her crying, and all of a sudden I couldn't smell her anymore. I used to be able to smell her. They were lovely smell babies, and her smell had gone, and my mum got rid of the cot and everything went, and no one ever spoke to her again. It was as if she died, and no one mentioned her name. It was like a bereavement, very much so, except you couldn't grieve.
I think the fact that I never married and had more children was probably due to going through the adoption process and the pain and shame. I was severely depressed for a lot of years afterwards. Very, very depressed. I took a train to the south of France and hitchhiked on boats to the Caribbean. And when I was out there, I decided I loved sailing more than anything. I was having a wonderful time until '89 when I came up to Maine. And I never came back. I realise now that I like the fact that it didn't matter who I was in that lifestyle, that nobody cared that I was an unmarried mother. I could wear a bikini and nobody cared about stretch marks, and I could just tell anyone. I didn't have to think about what I was saying. And every time I went home, I'd love to see my family. But I was always aware that I had to be careful of what I was saying. And I realise now that's why I never went back to England. And I feel really sad about that, because I didn't even know at the time that I was running away.
Every day he's been in my mind, wondered what he's doing. How has he fared at school with his education? Has he done well? Is he happy? Does his adoptive mum really love him? Does she love him as much as I would have loved him? All the normal things you feel when you see children growing up. All the years I've felt very, very, very bitter about it, very, very upset about it.
He's 27 now. I have this awful fear that I die and I never see him again. I'm getting older. He's getting older. He might not want to see me. But I don't know. I'd love to see him. I really would. But I can't look upon him as a grown man. I can only talk about him as a baby, because that is when I last saw him, when he was a baby. He's not a man. I can't see him as a man.
Although adopted people now have a right to information about their backgrounds, which can help them trace their natural parents, birth mothers who relinquished their babies in closed adoptions have no such automatic rights. The files that hold the vital clues often stay locked away, leaving them in agonizing uncertainty. Some women still try to search, but it can take years.
Well, the photographs came back from forensic. They were negative, really. They couldn't see anything, any information that would help me at all. Ariel is still searching the baptismal records in Church of England churches in London. There's not much more I can do. I think I've tried everything. Only Westminster Council can really help give me more information. If Ariel comes up with anything, that'd be lovely, absolutely smashing, but otherwise I just have to give up the search. I really can't see what else I can do.
We've worked really very hard on this case, looking at parish registers and all sorts of things in the area that we thought that he had been adopted into. And today, 6 months on from that time, I do now know what his name is and where he lives. The next stage is to see Mary and to tell her that we now have identified him and will be in a position, when she is feeling ready and I'm feeling ready to make an approach to him.
I wanted to know if she was alive. I wanted to know if she was happy. And I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. Every time I'd speak about her, I'd be crying. And it was an unbearable pain, not knowing. And my sister's just had her first baby, which brought it all up even more. And there was this, this wonderful little baby, and my sister's living in the village where my parents are, and everyone's congratulating her and congratulating them on their first grandchild. And it was like a knife. Every comment was like a knife. I knew I had to find my baby. I couldn't wait for her to find me. I had to try and find her. I went through about 140,000 names and found 2 girls who'd turned 18 on her birthday. I then called St Catherine's House and found out that neither of those two girls had been adopted. The searching is hell. The not knowing is hell. I got through 30 pages of a 209-page book of all the adoptions for 1973. And I just burst into tears. I just looked at that book and it was so hopeless. All those babies, you know, all that pain. A day before I left England, my mother rushed up to my bedroom with the envelope from St Catherine's House. I was sleeping late and she rushed in and I opened it and the first certificate I pulled out, and all the details matched and I knew I'd found my baby. It was so wonderful. I couldn't believe it. You know, women spend years hunting for this, and I think my prayers worked. It was the praying. It was amazing. I never thought I had much of a maternal instinct. It's suddenly come up. And I'm nesting. I am nesting. I've prepared a beautiful room for her. And it's been wonderful. I never in my life dreamed that I'd have the opportunity to prepare a room for her to sleep in. Today is going to be the most wonderful day of my life. I'm going to meet my baby again. At this moment, my baby is in the sky somewhere between England and America. And we're going to be meeting today, this evening. It was like giving birth for the first time. Finding her and speaking with her. You know, I was finally really a mother.
Oh, that is so beautiful.
Oh, wow.
View of your boat. Oh, it's so lovely. Oh. Oh, thank you. I do. Thank you. Oh, it's great.
It feels as if I've been in limbo since the moment of her birth until now.
Oh,
I'm glad you like it.
yeah. How could I not? You did it. Oh, wow.
There's a couple of postcards there. I didn't have time to... It's like I was a child when she was born, and I haven't quite become a woman. It's like the reunion with her is that I'm becoming a woman, a grown-up woman. It just feels like I feel like I'm a new mother.
As soon as we started saying things, we just thought, yep, we're mother and daughter, definitely mother and daughter. Our minds are totally alike. Yeah. And communicate on the same wavelength, and that's difficult. I've never found anyone else who can do it. No, I haven't either. There's no one has ever understood me.
We're still strangers in some way. We still hardly know each other, but this is excitement for both of us right now.
I used to use these chips commercially.
What I hope is just a relationship that grows and matures over the years, and that I can be supportive and loving to her in her life, and that we can share time together and just become even better friends.
So that little island just sort of behind the guy in the blue shirt, we're heading more or less for that, so we'll keep her pointing towards that. It's Saddle Island. A month ago you didn't know.
Who would believe we'd be doing this?
I can't believe it. Oh. You didn't even know if I was alive or anything. And
now we're steering a boat together. The law may say that she's not my child, that she's been adopted, but you know, nature steps in, and she has always been my child. Ever since she was born, ever since she was conceived, she's been my child. however far apart, and even if we had no contact.
I found my daughter the week before her 17th birthday. But I couldn't understand that she had a different name. That I found very hard, that she didn't have the name that I'd given her. It was as if it was a different person, this child that had been born that day. When I actually met her, I actually went up to the wrong girl, because I didn't think she'd be so tiny. She was 17 and she was full of she had a lot of hatred inside her. And she was determined she was going to take it out on me, and she did. She gave me 40 minutes of hell. Everything was my fault. If I asked her how she was, it was none of my business. She didn't want to know anything about me, and the first word she said to me was, "My parents are walking around town like criminals. You're not my mother." And the meeting just went downhill from then on. She's decided that she wants me to stay here. I live nearly 300 miles away from where she lives, and I'm just somebody down the end of the motorway who she can come and visit. She doesn't want me to share her life where she lives. I can't be her mother because she has an adopted mother, and I can't be her friend because there's a 15-year age gap. I'm not a sister, I'm not her auntie, so what does that make us to each other? It's very complicated. It's genetically, we're as close as you can be, a mother and daughter. It doesn't come much closer than that. But where really are we? I haven't brought her up. I haven't been there with her when she's been sick. Although I very much would like to be now, that's been denied me. My middle son, Aaron, was helping in an orphanage in Romania 7 years ago, and he saw this little girl there. Her sister had already died in the orphanage, and he said she desperately needed medical treatment. So I went over there, and then I saw her too, and I brought her back to this country. And I've eventually adopted her, and she's 9 now, and she's lovely.
Don't you dare say it to me. Come on! It's all right, go on. Don't puppet near me, you.
She'll never replace the daughter that I lost, but I didn't intend that to be the case anyway. We have an open relationship with her parents. She writes to them, and they write to me, and I send them photographs. And when she's older, we talk about her going to meet them. And I truly believe that that's the way it should be. The biggest crime was me is they took my baby from me without my having any choice in it. That choice was made by other people, by my mother, by social workers. And I was not a bad mum, I was a good mum, and I wasn't even given a chance. And I missed out on my daughter's upbringing, I missed out on her life, and I'm still paying the price now. Every day my grandchildren and my daughter get older, I don't spend any time with them because I have to pay the penalty for what I did all those years ago.
John and I carried on seeing each other. He never came in the house, not for a long while. I used to meet him outside. John and I have been married nearly 23 years. Got 2 children as well. Daniel, who's 18 next month. Louise, who was 12 in July. I'd have loved a house full of children, but we stopped at 2. Dominic is never out of my mind. I've never forgotten about him. The hurt doesn't go away. John would never talk about it. The reason he would not talk about it is because he said it upsets me too much. But it upsets me not to talk about it, really. It's a subject that's just never ever approached by anybody. I don't know why. We didn't do anything wrong. Daniel found out about Dominic because he was listening in on a phone conversation, and I didn't know how he'd react. I thought he'd go a bit funny, but he was fine when I explained about everything. He was fine, and he said, "So what? It's not a big deal anymore." But the next day, he said to me, Oh, he said, I've been thinking all about it. And I said, are you annoyed? Are you upset? And he said, no. He said, it's just nice that I've got an older brother. I've always wanted an older brother. So that was nice when he said that. But Louise, I don't think she really understands. She didn't understand the word adoption, so I had to explain what that meant. But she's not asked any questions. Well, she asked one, how old will he be? And I said he's 27. And that's all she's asked. I'd love to see him. My greatest wish is to see him. See my baby. I wouldn't hunt him out. I wouldn't look for him. I wouldn't search for him. I definitely wouldn't do that. I know people say that you can search for them. I wouldn't know where to start. But the reason I won't search for him is, what if he doesn't want to know me? What if he's been happy in his childhood and he's had a happy life? He might be very content and think, blow it. And I'd hate that rejection. That would be awful. To actually knock on his door of him to say, I don't want to know you. I don't know how I'd live with that. I really don't. I think that would be the end. That would be like living the adoption all over again. I love my mum and dad. I still do. But you can't forgive them for what they did. I know they thought they were doing what was best. But to have been asked would have been nice. To have been asked what I wanted to do would have been great. But I never got asked. I never got the choice of whether I wanted to keep him. I can't forgive them. I love them, but I can't forgive them for what they did. Not at all.
I've been married 30 years next March. I've had a wonderful marriage with 3 further children. Now got grandchildren as well. I always knew I would search eventually, really at a time when I thought that it wouldn't affect his adoptive parents too much. When I started to do the search for Graham, it was quite extensive, very hard work, and took a very long time, about 4 years in all. It was quite complicated, but I managed to get there in the end. At the present time, my eldest daughter Angela has acted as the third party. She wrote the first letter to him, and a month later she got a reply. I'd love to meet you, but he's not in any great hurry. He wants to get to know you first through writing. I cried all day, absolutely all day. It was just so... My poor husband wondered what happened because she phoned me up. I'm sobbing my heart out. He's going, what on earth's happened? What on earth's happened, Oh, it was just so wonderful. And she knew it was from him. She hadn't even opened the letter. She said, I've got a letter, Mum. And I said, oh, what does it say? She said, I don't know, I haven't opened it yet, but I know it's from him. It's just, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I've got a daughter myself who's a single mother, and I look at my granddaughter and I look at my daughter and I think, how can anybody on this earth make a decision to take a child away from a mother? That's just terrible. If the help was there and the support was there, it need never have happened. With the adoption need never have happened. Parting with my son need never have happened. It took me about a week to pluck up the courage to actually put pen to paper. And I sat and I wrote him a letter, which was the hardest letter I've ever wrote in my life. But I explained to him that he's never ever not been on my mind or in my thoughts. And I don't want to be a threat to his adoptive mother. She'll always be his mum, I know that. But fact is fact, and he is part of me, and he'll always be part of me. Nobody can take that away. And then I just said to him that I hope he can find it in his heart to write back to me, I'm sorry. And that he will write to me, which is what I'm waiting for. Every day the postman comes and I want to attack him to see if he's got a letter for me. And so just waiting with bated breath.
When I feel very angry about the whole business, it all seems so ridiculous, all this secrecy. People not wanting the neighbours to know, and it seems to be so much hurt for so little in return. My parents are dead, most of the neighbours are dead that we tried to keep it secret from, and it just seems so ridiculous looking back on it. I mean, so what? I can't understand it. I really can't.
I can tell you some things.
Can you?
Yeah.
Super.
I can tell you that he is alive.
Oh, great. Oh, that is a cloud off my...
I can tell you that.
That is... Oh, God, I just feel so...
And I do know what his name is now.
Do you?
And although it's really early days, and we've got ever such a lot of work to do, and I actually know where he is. I know where he is.
This is... I don't know what to say. This is wonderful news.
Right.
Mary, I'm so grateful.
No, nothing. It's my job.
I just can't believe this. This is happening. Only last night I was poring over the photographs till 2 o'clock this morning to give you more information or try and say, well, I'm quite sure that's so-and-so on the back of that photograph. And now you've come up with this.
It's good enough.
It is. All I want to know now is whether he's happy.
Ah, no, that I can't tell
you. No, fair enough, no, but I should think, yes.
I can't tell you. I mean...
But, this is wonderful news. I just can't... I can't take it in, quite frankly. It's just been such a long time, I think.
Right.
And you know where he is as well?
Yeah.
Still in this country?
Yes.
Thanks once again, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I don't think words can explain how I feel. It's wonderful news, absolutely wonderful news. I just feel a completely different woman. I just feel a big cloud has been lifted from my head. I didn't even know whether he was alive or dead. And this is wonderful news, it really is.
I'm extraordinarily pleased. I think it's a better thing to know that a child that was placed for adoption is alive than not. So I'm really pleased about that. And I hope very much that the future will bring a resolution which is a kind one.
I'm not expecting any relationship really, because obviously we'll be strangers. I don't want to intrude upon his life. I would love to be in touch. It'll all be lovey-dovey, but I know it can't be that way.
Since the making of this film, Janice and Graham have been happily reunited. If you would like more information about the adoption issues raised in this film, there's a free fact sheet available. Send a large stamped addressed envelope to Forgotten Mothers, P.O. Box 525, Manchester M60, 3JF.